Well, how about that? A few minutes late, some technical problems, which we hope we've solidified by this time.
It was
Anyway,
daylight savings time.
I'm sorry, John. What?
Daylight savings time.
Okay, John didn't get a lot of sleep last night. We'll go back to John's comment in a minute. Right now, we're going to establish the show, though. We say good morning. Welcome to Garden America. A few things that we're ironing out. Tiger's working on that. Hope you had a good week. Here's the weekend. Listening to us live, listening to us pre-recorded. We do appreciate it. I'm Brian Main. John Bagnasco talking about daylight savings time. Tiger making sure that we stay on the air. And yes, John, we are on daylight savings time, which means it's lighter longer.
Oh, I thought that was why we started 4 minutes late.
Let me see. How would that work?
I don't
Spring
know.
forward, fall back. Now, let's just come clean. We had a hard time staying on the air. Staying on Facebook Live, I should say. But we are back now. Tiger, how confident are you?
You know, once Tiger changed the batteries, everything was just fine.
The batteries. You know, 2 years ago, we had the batteries crap out on us during the show.
Right.
Just for the mics, though. It wasn't like it wasn't anything except for just for the mic connection.
And so Tiger had to change the batteries. So
Yeah.
John has held on to that for a couple of years, just like the time he came over to my patio. And I didn't have – a lot of my pots weren't quite full of soil.
Right.
They were halfway.
Oh, Brian, come on.
What are you talking about?
Some were at least 25% full.
See
That was
how
it.
the story changes over the years? That sounds better because I had I had a bag of soil that was like halfway gone. I didn't have a lot. So I just fed a little to the various pots to make sure they had something. He comes over. In fact, no, you know what? You were hanging out. You were peeking over my fence. I had no idea you were coming over. And I said, hey, what are you doing?
Creepy.
And he said, I'm looking at your pots. There's no soil in them. They're 25% full.
That was when you learned you need to cover the roots.
Yes.
That was when you learned not all plants are epiphytes.
That's another good one. And that's when you told me, but
And they were roses. That's what concerned me.
That's what sparked his interest. They were roses. Anyway, 25% sounds pretty good.
How are your roses doing, by the way?
Fantastic.
You got them all cut back.
Yep.
And all new growth.
Oh,
and
the
they
new
should
leaves.
have buds, right?
The new shiny leaves.
Don't you love spring leaves on roses?
I do. I'm a leaf guy.
Yeah.
I
They
love
look
leaves.
so good.
Yeah, and you know what? The rain didn't hurt either. This rain was good for.
You know what I'm wondering might hurt? I don't know what you guys think, but we're going from at my house the last 2 days was really
Chilly.
cold. It was chilly.
Yeah.
Like a high of 60 degrees.
Yep.
And wind blowing. We had gale force winds for 2 or 3 days in a row.
Gale
And
force.
so strong that my new roses, you know, the budded maidens, we've talked about that in the past, that the wind snapped off the flower stem. You know, like
Wow.
when the bud comes out, it'll go, you know, have a, and I know I should cut the first bud off, but I don't. I want to see it bloom. So it shoots up like maybe 12 to 18 inches. So it's just there attached to the plant, and the wind comes really strong and just snaps it off.
It right off.
Hey, John
Deadheads
just,
it.
or I
So
should
that's
say,
the end of it.
Dana just called us the Bicker Brothers. Hey, Bicker Brothers. So when you had these gale force winds,
Used to be a show called The Bickersons.
the Bickersons, an old radio show.
Yeah.
Did you run into the house during this gale storm and say to Shannon, "It's a twister. It's a twister"?
No, I did not say that.
You know where that's from, don't you?
No.
The Wizard of Oz.
It's a twister?
It's a twister. It's a twister. Yeah, when
said
the
that?
tornado's coming. Bert Lahr.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of,
This is before the dream.
I was thinking of the uncle.
The uncle.
Yeah.
What uncle?
Because her uncle. Doesn't she
uncle.
live with her Auntie M and
Oh,
uncle?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's why that
Yeah,
didn't make
this is
sense.
outside
I can
with
picture
Bert
Bert
Lahr.
Larson.
Is that
Bert Lahr.
Is that the scarecrow?
No,
or
he
is
was
that
the Cowardly
lion?
Lion.
The cowardly lion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were outside working, and then the winds came up.
She fell into the pig pen, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
it
See,
all
Tiger
starts.
knows. It's a twister.
All right. I got it.
Okay, good.
So, but let John finish his thought because I think he already forgot about it. But you're concerned because we've had cool weather,
Right.
And now we're gonna have
Yeah, thank
hot
you
weather.
for that, by the way.
Hot and cold. What
I
Bruce,
love Tiger's memory.
Bruce
yeah.
used to say hot and cold. Why do my lemons split?
okay.
Why does my citrus split? Hot to cold to hot to cold.
But, you know, now I'm looking at the forecast for next week, and we have 3 or 4 days that are predicted to be maybe hit 100.
Yep.
I mean, it's in the high 90s. And if that materializes, I'm wondering what's going to happen going from this really chilly cold weather to that hot weather.
Well, now,
all
will
of
it be a
sudden.
gradual change, or you wake up the next day and it's
I'll tell
100?
you what's going to happen.
No,
Have you ever vacationed in Florida, at the beginning of summer when you've seen all those people come down from the north and then they just go straight into the hot heat?
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen to your plants. They're going to get
And everything.
sunburned and,
Yeah.
and toasted out there.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
I think the roses will be okay as long as they're watered. Anyway, I guess that's important for plants in containers
start watering.
to keep them hydrated,
Yep.
right?
But even then, will the new foliage be able to withstand that intense heat?
Well,
It'll
the wind, I had some foliage, and even on a couple of the roses where it didn't snap, the top part still wilted over.
Yeah.
And it's even though the pots were wet, they couldn't take up, because of the wind blowing, couldn't take up moisture fast
enough,
enough
yeah.
to keep the plant hydrated.
And that's what people do make the mistake of, right? They see that, then they instantly put more water on it.
Right.
And then you go to the opposite effect where now you're drowning your plant.
Well, then it also makes a difference. Is it going to be hot,
And
just hot, or hot with wind?
Yeah.
If you add the wind to it, then
No good.
it's no good. And I'm concerned because our friend Joel and Becky came over to my house on Monday, and we got all the roses ready for this coming up auction, which I think is May 10th. And we got them all separated, but, already I had to pull one out because it snapped.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to have it. But anyway, I'm excited because this is to get ready for our big fall auction, to raise some money to be able to support that. But we've got probably, we'll have 100 roses in this auction. It's mail order or online bidding only, not in person. But there'll be a lot of roses offered for the very first time in this country.
That's cool.
I know, it's really cool.
Really?
We
Yeah.
should do a little show for it. Yeah.
We could.
What day's the auction?
I think, well, you can start bidding, I think, in a week or so.
Okay.
But the auction ends on Sunday, May 11th, or
11th.
May 10th, or whatever that is.
I think it's the 11th. I think May 10th is a Saturday.
Well, I'm sure you're going to get your hands on some of these roses.
Well, I
They're
have my
coming.
hands on them.
There it
They're
is.
coming from me.
That's what
Yeah.
but I'm saying, you're going to hold a few back?
Well,
He always has his own stash.
Of course.
if it's really rare, I try to keep one for future propagation. Because the purpose of what we're doing is to try to get save roses from extinction,
Right.
get them back into the public gardens. And so you got private gardens, people are going to be getting these, but then we're also working with the Huntington. I've gotten a few emails from Tom Caruth this week, and they lost a few roses that we have, and we're going to get to them.
Yeah.
So we're keeping them in public gardens where people can see them, and then in private gardens where people can share them. So that's what I do, Brian.
And then will you go forth and multiply after that? And
No,
be
we're
fruitful?
already multiplying.
And be fruitful.
Oh, we're multiplying.
Multiplying, you betcha. Okay, so hey, no guest today. If you got the newsletter, which I hope you did, you knew that it was just us. But Tiger, people are just clamoring, sending emails, and wondering how do they sign up for the newsletter?
Are they?
How do they?
Yeah. It's on our website.
Oh, GardenAmerica.com.
GardenAmerica.com. You go to the website, click on the, put your email address in
Right.
the little bar and say, add to the newsletter.
Now, if you subscribe to the newsletter, you may win a prize, not from us, but maybe just by chance, you'll win a prize from somebody. But we do encourage you to
If you subscribe and buy a lottery ticket, you've got a chance.
you got a chance. John puts a lot of work and effort into the newsletter.
Hey, we've
and-
got a
and
new
some changes.
feature we're talking
Well,
about.
I know some changes coming to the newsletter.
Yeah. Well, why don't we ask people what they think? Maybe Tiger could show.
Show a cartoon that you did.
Yeah.
He can hold it up to the camera.
Yeah. And
He
see
can
if-
do. We can do that after the break. We're too
Okay.
close to a break right now.
All right. Well, are we close enough that I have time to do
Exactly.
the-
I have carved out this portion of the show for your quote of the week.
We've talked in this year about Ruth Stout, and we talked about some videos that she had made. And I think it was one of our listeners, Paula, had lived in New York when Ruth Stout was over there. But anyway, I became fascinated with some of the things she did. And this quote is from her. And she said, "We all have preferences." She says, "I love spring anywhere, but if I could choose, I'd always greet it in a garden."
Good quote.
Excellent.
Be there in the garden to greet spring. We are just in time now for our break. Biz Talk Radio, welcome. This break's for you. I want to thank our major sponsor, Fertilome. Please support Fertilome. In fact, we're going to have them on the show in the not-too-distant future as one of our guests, so we can talk about their line of products. So again, taking a break for Biz Talk Radio, Brian Main, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. Stay with us. Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio, back after these messages. So we are back. The mics are hot. I tested it, burnt my finger. And let's see, we got a couple of questions here. We're going to talk about maybe some updates to the newsletter and some ideas that we have here on Garden America, John.
Well, Carla was asking if we had thunderstorms in San Diego. At my house, we did have thunder, but not a storm. Where I live, I can never tell if it's thunder at first or Camp Pendleton because they sound the same.
Yeah, when they're shooting off.
Yeah, when the
No, we didn't have. We had rain, but no thunder.
You know what was funny is yesterday driving the kids home from school. We have this area where we go high on the 805, and you can kind of see all around San Diego. And it looked like we were in the eye of a giant storm because when I looked to the east, there was some very intense clouds.
Yeah.
And when I looked to the south, there were some very intense clouds. And then when I looked to the north, and I'm like, I feel like we're in a giant hurricane because it looks very bad all around us. And so I imagine there were probably some storms going on, but we were not affected by any of it.
I was standing in my backyard, and I looked off to the north, and these, like you're saying, these dark black clouds.
Really?
But it was sunny where I was.
Yeah. Not a cloud in the sky, just beautiful.
And then it started raining.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
All right.
So yeah, it missed us, but it definitely, I could see where it did hit people all around us. Yeah.
Yeah, Lenore said that it was cold and windy at her house, too.
Interesting.
And she said then it rained, lasted a couple hours, and the next day, sunny and warm.
Yeah, yesterday was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
It was nice. It's always nice right after a rain.
Feels good.
We have Kim listening from Tucson. I would imagine Tucson weather's really nice this time.
Oh, I imagine, right?
I wonder how, I think they start getting hot in April.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I talked to some buddies, some producer buddies in Phoenix, and last couple of weeks they hit 95.
Did
Really?
they?
Yeah, but then it gets
Already?
but then it gets cool again. It's one of those kind of gearing up for summer, and then after a certain point, probably I'm guessing, like John says, latter April, May, then it's sustained heat.
You know, in the Phoenix and like the Arizona area too is a funny thing like San Diego because people have this vision of San Diego and then they come into San Diego in June and July thinking it's a Southern California sunny place. And it's not. We have
Not yet.
We have June gloom and
Yep.
it's not sunny as you would think it was, sunny and warm. And Arizona's kind of like that too, where they think all through the summer it's going to be just hot and dry. But they have the summer where they get them monsoons.
They get monsoons.
They get massive rainstorms come through.
It's warm.
And
Very
they
it's a
don't,
hot
yeah,
monsoon.
and they don't think they think, oh no, it's going to be hot and dry, and then it rains, and
Isn't that closer to like August?
yeah, it's later. But
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
exactly.
Like they think it's going to be dry there all the summer, but it's not.
I made a trip with, I'm trying to think. It might have been just Joel, but Cliff Orant had told us about a nursery that was closing down in Phoenix.
Oh,
And we drove out, we rented a U-Haul truck
you're
and
like,
drove
I'm
out.
gonna load up.
I
drove-
remember this.
Yeah, we drove
Yeah.
out there to pick up roses, and it was August. And as we're driving, the thought just came to me, we're going to Phoenix
In August.
in August, and the truck's not cooled. I mean,
No.
it's going to be like
No,
200
he's-
degrees
Yeah.
in the
Oh yeah,
back.
that's right. In the back where you're going to have the roses.
where the
yeah.
roses were going to be. But just by fortune, good luck, there was that monsoon weather you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it was cloudy, overcast, cool. Actually rained a little bit on
You just
the
got to
way
worry
out
about
there.
roads washing out.
Yeah, because that happens over there too.
Yeah.
Right.
That didn't happen though. So everything came back just
Perfect.
fine.
You know, it's interesting because I went to school in Flagstaff, and of course, there's snow in the wintertime. In the summertime, though, every day for 20 minutes, a monsoon.
Really?
Every day sweeps in,
Just boom.
dumps rain, it's gone just about every day. It's really weird. And that's high elevation,
Yeah.
7,000 feet. But yeah, same kind of thing.
That's interesting.
Tanya from San Jose and Carla from Huntington Beach are chit-chatting about Tanya's picture of an azalea that was in the newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a reblooming azalea. And I believe, I don't know if you know that one, but I think it's a Proven Winners azaleas. So I think Proven Winners is putting out some reblooming azaleas
Reblooming
now.
ones. Yeah, I'm not sure.
What were the other ones called? Encores?
Encore was
Yeah,
the
there was
other
a
brand.
series. And I think you planted those in my house.
I think so.
A lot of Encore
Are yours
Is
blooming
that,
right now?
is that just before he left?
before he left.
Yeah. Is that the
Encore.
last thing he did
Yeah,
before he
it's the
left your
last thing I
property?
did.
I have a camellia that I should plant next to it called, because they both take shade, and the camellia is called Standing Ovation.
Oh, there you go.
Next to Encore.
Is yours blooming though? Your
Yeah.
azaleas?
They've actually
'Cause
been blooming on and off throughout the whole year.
Yeah, I've been around, and a lot of azaleas are looking really good right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. So,
Usually it's like spring, a good bloom in spring, like you're talking about. Then again in the fall,
right.
it may be sporadic through the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking these Proven Winners may be more ever blooming. I don't know.
Are rhododendrons spring also?
Spring only, yeah,
They're spring only.
right.
Oh, okay.
At least when I grew rhododendrons, I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
If there's been any
different
changes
ones nowadays.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they you know, what would be good to go right now would be the Japanese Friendship Garden right there in
Balboa Park.
because they have a lot of azaleas down there, and it's always looking pretty. And if they can get the cherry blossoms and the azaleas to kind of go at the same time, it's magical.
Bruce and Sharon, his family, I think it might have been Moto, donated the cherry trees to the Japanese Friendship Garden.
They've done a great job of expanding that. I don't know the last time that you went there.
I don't think I've ever been there.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, you would be amazed then just going there. It's
very friendly.
Really?
Because I've gone there over the. I've gone there over the years. It's a Japanese Friendship Garden. Of
It's
course
very friendly.
friendly.
It's nice. A lot of nice people.
But they've added whole areas now that they didn't have before, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Like you can spend probably as a plant enthusiast, you could easily spend 5-6 hours there.
Shut up.
And just wander the whole thing and see something new and
Really?
different around. Yeah.
Long time to be wandering around.
Yeah. They have a whole
As
bonsai
you get
section.
older, Brian, 5-6 hours of wandering won't seem like much.
And you'll forget when you started to wander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And you're wondering why you're wandering.
Yeah, I'm wondering why I'm wandering. Do we have time for a quick question? I see we got some questions on
Yeah,
Facebook.
John in Newport Beach, he says he's got a question about shade trees and ground covers.
All right.
He's tried a lot of different plants, from succulents to hostas, but nothing lives. Next up is an ivy, I think.
Yeah.
Can you comment and recommend one? Well, first of all, hostas don't do well in Southern California,
No.
so don't try those. Succulents.
No.
You don't think so?
Not in shade, under a shade tree?
Yeah, but I was wondering, what about some of the sedums?
Right, but what happens is, I've seen it happen, and where in the warmer months they do grow pretty well because they do tolerate shade and they grow. But what happens is in the winter months when it's wet, it stays wet, and then they get real sparse. You know what I mean? And that's what you're battling. And so I think, he mentioned ivy, vinca. Those trailing plants are going to be your best bet.
We're going to take a break right now.
All right, well,
You have to
discuss
hold
it
the
more
same
when
thought.
we come back.
Hold the same thought, you
Tiger
guys.
will have to hold it, but
And
I'll
John,
chime
you
in.
can wander the hallways during the break if you want. We're going to be back much quicker on Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio, taking a break. Back after these messages here on Garden America, All right. I hope you had a good break. We are back. Let's go back to the subject matter before the break. We were talking about shade trees and what to grow, right?
Under shade
right.
trees, you want a ground cover. And the biggest thing that people battle is
lack of sunlight.
Lack of sunlight, and it stays wet. So you
right.
battle those two things.
Now, what about the kind of tree?
That
shade
also,
tree. The reason I'm bringing that up is if it's something that drops a lot of leaves and you've got a small-leaved ground cover, isn't it going to be like cover it up and bury it?
Right.
So you need something a little more vigorous.
Well, you talked about how it retains moisture, and if you have leaves dropping on top of that moisture, it's never going to dry out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends how you water.
Yeah.
I mean there's a lot of the watering.
There's a lot of this just goes to the whole gardening. If we want to go down this rabbit hole, it's like, okay, let's start off with, is it an evergreen shade tree or is it a deciduous shade tree? Because if it's an evergreen, like I said in my comment, you worry about not necessarily the summer months because you water it, succulents grow, ground covers grow, all is good, and plants actually enjoy living in the shade a little bit. Okay.
John says, by the way, that it's a pine tree.
Okay, so it's an evergreen.
Yeah.
And so the issue that I have is that even during the winter months, it's shading. So you get a good rain underneath the shade tree. That water doesn't go away for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on how much rain and then how frequent it gets. So a succulent can't grow in that watered soil that well.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge. Where if it was a deciduous tree, like where maybe John was going, like a sedum, actually would not do bad because it gets full sun because it loses all its leaves in that time of year, and now that watering issue isn't of concern. So
what are we going to do under a pine?
Under a pine, ivy.
But now ivies, you got to be careful of.
Yeah, you're right.
Because they're so enthusiastic.
What was it? Maybe it's like 40 years ago now, 30, 40 years ago, everyone had Algerian ivy.
Oh, yeah, because you couldn't kill it, right? That's how plants come into the market. It's like, oh, it's tough. It grows fast. It does this. You're like, oh,
but
yeah,
I
but
remember going by people's homes and seeing Algerian ivy like almost knee-high, even up to waist-high.
Yeah.
Because it would just build up on top itself. And then it was full of snails and everything in there. So Algerian ivy's a no.
Yeah.
But what type of ivy?
Yeah,
I mean, there's smaller leafed ivies.
There's the smaller leaf, and then kind of like we said, a lot of and this is a general term, a lot of the plain green ivies with a smaller leaf are also very vigorous growers. So they're enthusiastic, as Brian said.
They don't mind the water.
Yeah, and they don't mind the water. But if you go with a variegated foliage one, they don't grow usually as quickly. So a little bit more manageable.
That's a good idea.
Like if you found a variegated, just
a variegated English ivy.
Yeah, because those don't take over as quickly as some of the other green varieties do because they just don't grow as quickly as a general rule. The other thing under a pine tree, and we were talking about Japanese friendship gardens, what about a mondo grass? You usually see those in that kind of environment, don't you?
Do they take the water?
I think so. I think that might. Yeah. I feel like I've seen mondo grass, pine trees.
Right. Maybe even, what about liriope?
The shorter ones would be great. That tall one would be
I think
a
liriope would be perfect under there.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about... The thing that worries me, I've had bad experiences with vines.
Yeah, you have.
No,
especially in your old house.
I had to move from my old house because of the cat's claw.
Yeah.
I had to sell my house because of a vine.
Yeah. That was horrible. Like the vine from hell.
And then, Kipskate just gave up on his house because of a vine. So
liriope. That's what we pick.
Ivy, those are going to be good ground covers underneath there. And
ivy's going to start growing up the tree.
It will.
But you have to really maintain it. You got to stay on
it.
Yeah. Yeah, liriope, there's no, and if people are wondering what we talk about, sometimes people pronounce it liriope.
Liriope.
Yeah.
What's its common name? It has a funny common name, I feel.
I don't know.
Yeah. But and then there's different versions of it. And then there's a variegated version of that as well. So meaning like a more of a white in its leaf. And those do not grow as aggressive either. But I would almost say you wanted the green one.
Yeah.
Lily turf.
Liriope is Lirope, right?
Yeah. Lily turf is the common name.
Oh, lily turf.
I
Yeah,
like that name. It's funny.
that's
name.
an common name.
You think so?
Yeah, I've never heard anybody ask for a lily turf.
Yeah.
Have you?
It's like asking for a frangipani.
Yeah. Nobody asked for frangipani. They want plumeria.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of uncommon.
Uncommon.
By the way, another plant that might do under there that I've never seen anyone use.
So maybe it doesn't.
No, it does, but just nobody ever plants them outdoors. There's a house plant called the piggyback plant.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just amazed at how well that does outside. And they like the water, so that's not going to bother them. And they're just kind of cute.
And
Called a piggyback plant.
We
'cause
talked about that a while
who
back.
asked for this plant?
That was John in Newport Beach.
Newport Beach. Oh man, you have options too because
Yeah,
Newport Beach,
because of
like
its
John
location.
mentioned, there's actually a lot of tropicals, like houseplants that people would be like, oh, and they would grow well there because it's Newport Beach, very mild temperatures,
Well, there's shade shrubs you could use
Yeah.
if you didn't want a ground cover. Like hydrangeas would be great, right?
beautiful
Yep.
Yeah.
And you've got the acid from
the needles.
From the needles, if you want blue hydrangea,
Yeah.
it'll help to keep them blue.
Yeah. And pine trees are great trees. I love when people have pine trees on their properties because I think they're very pretty trees. But it's a tough mess to clean up.
We had pine trees everywhere in Pacific Beach back in the day growing up.
Yeah.
And one street in particular, Oliver Street, east and west. So you've got Pacific Beach Drive running east and west, going north a couple of blocks or a block to Oliver, and probably for 8-9 blocks on both sides of the street, pine trees growing over, almost touching each other
Over the street.
over the street, creating
Yeah.
shade.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's a mess.
And it's not like, a liquid amber mess where they fall down, you rake up the leaves into a big pile and you jump in it, and that's fun. Pine trees are messy after a windstorm, and you can't really rake up the leaves very easily, and they aren't fun to jump into,
Nope.
and they're very pointy and sharp, and
Yeah.
you can't walk around barefoot. Yeah.
I have some pine tree mulch I'm using on the hillside.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jan in Brentwood mentions that she, all capital letters, hates vines.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope she's not talking about climbing roses,
Yeah. There you go.
because I have a feeling she may like climbing roses.
Yeah.
But yeah, vines you've got to have. Right now, people walking down the street all stop and comment because on the fence are some primrose jasmine.
Uh-huh.
The pink jasmine, I should say.
Yeah.
Not primrose jasmine, but pink jasmine.
It's all in bloom.
All in
You
bloom,
You
and-
can't avoid it because it's so fragrant.
Right. And somebody mentioned the other day I was out there working and if I ever feel like I need a little pick-me-up and I want a compliment, I just go out there and work, and people coming by tell me what a good job I'm doing.
Good job, John.
Yeah, your garden looks great. But anyway, last week there was a group of ladies on their walk, and they said, we were coming up from down the hill, and this aroma came to us because the wind was blowing just right, and it blew the fragrance of that jasmine down to them. So they were pleased with that.
Yeah, and the only bummer. Not the only bummer, but the big bummer to that is that it all blooms at once. And so you get this massive bloom. Everything's magical.
For about a month. Yeah.
But then the flowers all die and turn brown, and then they
on the
stay
plant for a
there.
while, right.
Yeah. So everybody thinks that your plant has died when it's just the flowers are dead. And you can't, a normal plant like regular star jasmine, would be what we call self-cleaning, where the flower just falls off,
Right.
and you don't even notice a flower is dead because it just falls off,
Right.
and new flowers take its place. These ones just stay on the plant.
Yeah, they
They don't
exactly.
fall off. It looks like a
Looks terrible.
It looks like a dead tumbleweed is on your fence now.
It is break time
Again?
already.
Are you cutting them short?
No, not at all. Look at the clock.
Check. Double check.
Right here, looking at it. You know why? Because when we don't have a guest, we're talking about a lot of subjects quickly. Time goes by.
Okay.
People are enthralled by what's happening. We're going to take a break.
Isn't that
Speaking
a
of
song,
enthralled,
as time goes by.
what's that?
There's a song as time goes by.
By the Rolling Stones. I sit and watch as tears go by, as time
Tears
goes
go by.
Yeah, that's it.
That was Marianne Faithfull.
Yes, Rolling Stones did it also, but they wrote it for her.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Speaking of the Rolling Stones, Biz Talk Radio, this break's for you. Back on Facebook Live as well. Stay with us. All righty, are you having a good time? Because we are. We are back. Again, we failed to mention we're in the same studio that we've been in for many, many years here at iHeart Media and Entertainment, the World Domination headquarters. John, it all starts here and filters out. This is, by the way, if you're on Biz Talk Radio, this is the final segment of hour number 1. News coming up top of the hour. If you're Biz Talk Radio, hour 2 starts at 6 minutes after. I see a look on Tiger's face right now. Are we okay?
We have a ton of comments.
Okay, good. You had
I
this
feel
look-
like we should focus
Let's get
on
back
these
to them.
because
What are you waiting
Yeah.
for? Quit
I
wasting
wanted
time.
to mention, though, quickly, because you were talking about the Rolling Stones, is that you're a lot more successful now collecting moss now that you stopped using them.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to go back on tour next year. They're going to change their name,
To what?
the Strolling Bones.
I always thought you were going to say the Grateful Dead.
Okay,
All
let's
right,
get to those questions
okay.
and comments, Tiger.
We do have a question. I don't know if you saw it, though, back about rhododendron.
yes,
Are you back
that was one.
far?
Let's do that one right now. Yeah.
Okay.
The leaves are curling in. Speaking of rhododendron, the leaves on mine started curling in. Not sure what's happening, but I like that. I want to read the replies real quick, John, while you
Okay.
think of your reply. Carla wrote, "They don't like tax time."
That's why they're curling?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then Lisa wrote, they're under redwood trees. So she gave us some more context about it.
Under
this-
what redwood trees is a good place for them.
Yeah, they love that area,
Yeah.
right? Rhododendrons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The things that make rhododendron leaves or curl that I recall, one is extra cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of curl. And then sometimes the old leaves do that just before the new ones are coming out. So the thing to watch, I guess, would be whether it's the new leaves that are curling or if it's the old ones. If the old ones are curling, I wouldn't worry.
But the new leaves
Make
are
sure that the new
problem.
ones are coming out,
Yeah.
right? And they come out right at bloom time.
And
So-
kind of like what John mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of the reasons why that will happen is because we will go from warm to cold to warm to cold, and it doesn't give that leaf the time to adapt. And so, we had some warm weather, the leaves came out, and then we had a cold snap, and then that's where the leaves curled. And, now, like John mentioned, we're going to have some warm weather come along again.
John calls that shrinkage.
Yeah. and it could happen again because it could get cold again because to answer two comments with one
Answer?
answer
Okay.
would be Dana's question about if the rain is over. And no, because it's April,
Right. yeah.
April, and we still have May, and we still do get a substantial amount of rain through the spring. It doesn't come like normal, like it'll be just like one rain and then dry for 3 weeks, and then one rain and then dry for 3 weeks. But that could bring cold weather with it too sometimes. So we're not out of the clear in terms of no rain and no cold. And when we say cold too, this is cold to us is kind of like what John said in the, what was it, 60s? What did you say? It was
61.
really cold, and it was
yeah.
and it was 60.
60.
And people laugh because when they are back east and they're like, "Oh, it was a cold snap." It's the 40s or like colder,
Yeah.
Well, we
and
get
that's shorts and T-shirt weather back there.
yeah.
traditionally where I live, nighttime it's in the 40s. 42, 43, 45 lately.
Yeah.
You're probably a little cooler, right?
No, I'm in the high
he's-
40s.
Yeah,
Really?
he's got a special
Low
area.
50s.
Because he's also situated up high. If he was down in the valley, areas. I think it
Right.
would get colder.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're up high there that you don't get affected as much by that. So I think that answered 2 questions with 1 answer.
Lenore mentioned that her red bud trees are blooming, and mine are too now.
Yeah.
I love red buds.
Yeah.
And I like the new ones with we've talked about it before, but with different colored leaves. There's one called Rising Sun
Yeah.
with chartreuse leaves, which I really like, and then another one called Fall Festival, something like that. But it's got multicolored leaves, and it just looks like fall colors throughout the whole season. Then, let's see.
I want to.
go ahead.
John and Bonnie's wisteria.
Yeah, I was going to mention there was a picture of John in Newport Beach, his wisteria plant that was in full bloom right now.
Yeah.
And would you want to read about how he planted it? Is that what you were going to
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, so they had said planted the wisteria after a visit to the mission in Santa Barbara in the spring decades ago. Amazing, fragrant, and great to cover the outdoor patio cover. Shade in the summer, open in the winter. Flowers are an Easter treat. And, I will say the kind of like comment regarding vines. Wisterias are magical, absolutely beautiful growing vines. You put them up, you see the pictures all the time. You go to a botanical garden where they're just growing over a patio and the flowers are dangling there just beautifully.
One of the main reasons I moved to California.
Really?
Yeah, because in Michigan, they're marginally hardy.
Yeah.
And I planted a tree wisteria, which you never saw tree wisterias in Michigan. At least 50 years ago. and so everybody wanted one.
Yeah.
And I planted one at my parents' house, and it sat there and grew for probably 5 years, 6 years. Finally, it put out buds one spring, and everyone was excited to see these wisteria blooms. And they got to be, as they elongated, they were probably about 3 inches long, and we got a killing freeze.
Oh,
and they
that was
froze.
it.
And I said, I just can't take this anymore. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So that's
But,
one of the reasons.
I mean, everybody sees them in magazines. You see them all the time. But I will say they require a good amount of maintenance to make them look and be controlled, because a lot of times they'll plant them over that and then they get very like viney through everything. And, but a good, well-maintained wisteria is magical. It really is magical. I mean, you can't beat it.
There's the one up in, is it Laverne or
The
one
nursery?
of
What do you mean?
up in that
Area?
area? Yeah, there's one in somebody's backyard that's famous.
Oh, I don't know.
It's,
Not sure.
I think it's like 100-year-old vine or something
wow.
like that, and people come from all over to see it.
And the wood trunk on them is always so
Yeah.
cool looking. They remind me of that's where you would want to put like the little fairy houses is on like a wisteria trunk.
It is break time already, Tiger.
Oh my god!
I thought I'd hit you with that.
I
don't
gotta
believe
check
it.
your clock.
You can check the clock.
You're
So we're going
kinda
to take a
short.
break because those on Biz Talk Radio who are listening so intently, it's going to be news for them if they pay attention to news. Second hour, John starts at 6 minutes after. Facebook Live is going to be one continual show. We're going to be back before you know it here. Thank you to Stephanie and the crew on Biz Talk Radio. So back after the news, back after this, Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio. Stay with us here on Garden America. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Welcome to those on Biz Talk Radio, hour number 2, Facebook Live. We've seen just about everything so far happen here in the studio, John, even in between setting up the cameras and whatnot. And you're happy to get back on track and start things over again, John.
We come back from a break. Does that mean that the break broke?
No, but you can remember this. When news breaks
I thought you were going to say a kiss is just a kiss.
and a smile is just a smile. No, when news breaks,
Right.
we fix it.
Oh, all right.
How about that? Okay, back to
that.
your questions, your comments here on Facebook Live and Biz Talk
We
Radio.
have a citrus question from our Huntington Beach reporter,
Okay, then pucker up. Here we go.
Carla. Tiger, she says, what are the brown and black flecks that stick to the skin of citrus fruit? And she said they scrape off easily and it doesn't hurt the fruit, but it's just annoying. She said she's thinking it might be from whiteflies. What do you think? I wouldn't think whiteflies. I would think more scale, right?
Yeah, usually it is scale. That's very
Citrus scale is pretty common.
very common, and a lot of people don't even notice it on the trunk. They just don't even know they have that problem.
Because if it's brown scale, it's the same color as the trunk.
It
just
looks
blends in.
exactly like the stem and the trunk of the trees. And a lot of people don't even realize they have it, and then they I show them and I just scrape it off. I'm like, look at, see, this is all these are all bugs, and it's just 100% covered. And
by the time it gets to the fruit, though, you got a problem.
You have a
right?
huge problem.
Yeah.
And so this is where we cross paths with people, because if it is on the fruit, like you mentioned, John, you have a problem. This isn't just like, oh, wash it off with some soap and you're good to go. It would be good to use a systemic treatment,
or suffocate it, right?
Yeah. You'd have to be out there, again, every week, spraying it, treating it.
I think the oils are pretty effective.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
so
pillows don't work. Brian tried suffocating his with a pillow. Did not work.
It worked for a while.
Yeah. So there's a lot of sprays for scale. There's the systemic treatments, which are pretty easy to do, and it'll treat that for the scale too. But yes, it's scale. And that's, if it's on the fruit, that means it's pretty extensive through the whole plant. You can probably start looking at the
So when you
stem.
say people don't even realize they have it before getting onto the fruit, and you start scraping, is it because there's so much there it just looks like one color?
Exactly.
And,
it just looks like it's
part of the
stem.
tree.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. They're not one or two here or there.
Right.
It's all over it. You don't even realize it. So I think it's scale, and it probably is pretty extensive.
Rick in Star, Idaho wants to know if we answered a question from last week. I think at the end of the show last week, he asked if plants know the difference between chemical fertilizers and organic fertilizers at the micro level.
Well,
Sorry, what?
Well,
I was reading. Sorry, you look. I looked up and you were looking straight at me.
well, let me ask you this: isn't a chemical fertilizer one that would go right directly onto the plant itself, and an organic fertilizer would go into the soil, so it would seek out, as opposed to being drenched with it?
Well, yes. I don't know if that has anything to do with his question.
Well, he's
though,
asking. I mean,
well, at the micro level, I think he wants to know when they go to, plants feed on nutrients, right?
right.
So when it comes down to it, do they know the difference between chemical and
Organic.
Organic. And a plant root cannot take up an organic molecule.
Right.
It can only take up like nitrate. Nitrates would be the form of nitrogen they would take up. But what happens is that with organic foods, they need to be worked on by the soil microorganisms who will change them to a form that the plant can take up.
Yeah, okay.
With the chemical fertilizer, it doesn't need to be changed. It just is taken up straight into the plant.
Yeah, whether it's through the foliage or through the root.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And on the way, it kills the soil bacteria.
Yes.
The good stuff.
Yeah.
The good ones, good bacteria.
So to ask if a plant knows the difference, no. But it does make a difference.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because like you're saying, the way the plant just knows it as like the nitrate, whether it's the chemical or the organic, because it's already what it is. But the way it's absorbed and how it's taken up by the plant, it makes a huge difference.
It would be like if you were in a spaceship.
Okay.
Well, here we go.
Yeah, let's do this.
And you were breathing in the oxygen in the spaceship. Would your body know the difference between whether that was
Great example.
Whether that was air that was coming from inside the spaceship,
Or just natural
air if you were down on Earth?
It would not.
Until
Exactly.
until you stop producing oxygen.
Yep.
And then your body would know the difference.
Yep.
So we're talking about the way that it's how it's absorbed and
Right.
if the plant is aware
Yeah,
of it.
your body would still be absorbing the oxygen whether you're on Earth
Okay,
or
now
in space.
here's a
Yeah.
bad analogy that John's going to go, that's just silly.
Okay.
But let me ask you this. Would it be like,
Will I say silly instead of stupid?
oh, let's see. Let's find out.
Okay.
How about you're getting treated, right? And
Treated
you're given
for
an
what?
injection of something.
Okay.
Okay. You're also given the same thing to drink.
Okay.
Does your body know that it was injected or you drank it? Because it's going to absorb it the same way.
100%.
One is an injection.
That's why you get
and-
treatments
and
and
one is
injections. Because if your body drinks it, it goes through a filtration
Right.
process where some of that stuff would not even be affected.
as opposed to directly getting an injection
into the vein,
into the bloodstream.
bloodstream.
Right.
It doesn't get filtered out. It
Exactly,
goes straight
right.
into your blood.
Exactly.
That is a dumb question.
No, I wasn't.
I'm just kidding. No,
I
I'm
wasn't.
not
I
saying-
wasn't really questioning.
No.
It was more like an analogy. I should
Yeah.
have said an analogy, not a question.
Yeah. No, but it's very different because
Yeah.
the organic versus chemical fertilizers, they are nitrogen, phosphorus, or potash. At the end of the day, the plants just know them as that. But whether it's organic or whether it's chemical, it's also going to affect on how it affects the plant later on, how it affects the soil later on, and other things that we've talked about.
So is we talk about chemical directly onto a plant? No thinking involved. It just has it.
Yeah.
So how is that analogy like when we apply certain products that are a miracle and it
Just goes directly into
goes
the plant.
directly
Yeah.
onto that, but it's an abnormal growth, right? It's a little too quick for the plant, and that's why you have thin cell walls
Yeah,
because
you're
of that.
bypassing the root system and going direct
Right.
into the
Right. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would
I
be like
John's-
you guys were just talking about. It would be a difference whether you took it
A shot.
orally
Yeah.
or you got a shot.
Yeah. If you eat well, it passes
Yes.
through your body filters and it distributes it naturally through your body, or you can just get it straightly injected into you where
Injected.
it doesn't pass through your body
Right.
well or anything.
But you
Yeah.
get that quick little whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
But it could be a sugar fix, which might taste good at the same time.
Oh, by the way, speaking of that, what was it? 2 weeks ago that you gave us the box of See's candy?
oh yeah, that was a whole box of treats.
So I do one a day.
It's supposed to be vitamins you do that with,
Yeah,
Brian.
not-
No, but
See's
the
candy.
point is, there's a certain amount of discipline that's going into this because when you open that up, one's never enough.
Right.
But
But
one a
you,
day.
You limit yourself to one.
One, and I didn't have any yesterday, but we're making our way through them. Is it?
Well, what happens is when you're done with the box, then what do?
I smell it. I keep it around. I open it
But
up.
you
put it on
might
the-
You might need to go get another one.
I put it
by
on the
that
counter
point.
and just absorb all the nice smells. Okay, next
Okay.
Question comment.
Hey, Rick pointed out that the wisteria was talking about was in Sierra Madre.
Yeah, good note.
Oh, there was a movie, right?
The wisteria of Sierra Madre.
Yeah. We don't need those stinking badges.
John, by the way, Tiger City agreed with everything you said about the wisteria. He said that takes some work, but it's magical and worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking? My favorite, done well anyway, bonsai is probably a wisteria tree. Have you ever seen those?
Are so
I've never seen one. I
amazing.
bet that looks beautiful.
Oh, they're
Oh,
little,
my
a little
gosh.
tiny bonsai pot with this miniaturized wisteria tree in bloom.
Talk about magical type.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are phenomenal.
Okay, we are
And
coming
it takes
up.
so much patience and energy to do
Yeah,
that.
if any of our listeners want to see that, if you just Google wisteria bonsai, I think you'd be shocked. I had the good fortune to see a couple in full bloom in bonsai shows, and they were amazing.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Recharge during this break for Biz Talk Radio. Facebook Live are coming back very quickly. So do stay with us. Keep them coming, gang, here on Garden America. John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. I'm Brian Main. Back after these words. And again, a big thank you to our sponsor, Fertilome. Back after this, Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. All right, the fun and games continue as we continue here on Garden America. We're glad you could join us. We do this every week here. Every Saturday, John, in case you're wondering.
Hey, Jan in Brentwood, California, mentioned how great her roses were looking. You know, everything coming out in bud
Right,
and bloom. And I wanted to mention to our listeners that Jan has one, probably, maybe even the country, but for sure in California, one of the best rose collections in the entire state. I'd go so far as to say the entire country. approaching, if not over now, 2,000 different varieties of roses.
How big is the property?
I know it used to be horse property.
Okay, well, there you go.
And I think that's part of the reason why her roses do so well.
Because of all that fertilizer.
Yeah, a lot of them are, as I recall, she has planted in old horse corrals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Maybe you can answer this one quickly, but Veronica was asking, John, does a wisteria tree require as much work as the vine? Just asking for a friend.
I like that.
And John can answer this because he knows.
I'm just asking for a friend. It depends, I guess. In cold climates where they're just marginally hardy, they're not going to grow as fast. So I'm trying to think. Have you ever seen one in California, wisteria trees?
Besides at your house?
Do I have one?
I thought you had one. No, bougainvillea tree is what I'm thinking of. Sorry. No, I have not.
I seem to recall seeing, and maybe some of our listeners have seen wisteria trees here in California.
We used to sell them up at our nursery in Alpine, though.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So.
They do need heavy pruning every year, as I recall, to keep them just from going crazy, right?
Like I say,
otherwise it's a vine on a stick.
Yeah. So they are tough to get going. But I imagine once you get it probably like 5 years down the road.
Like a bonsai,
yes.
Needs to be trained.
Yeah.
This isn't as dramatic, but the same thing, just some pruning. Probably after it blooms every year.
Yeah.
Cut it back. Have people commenting on the cameras. Some like the camera. Carolyn and
what camera? What are we talking about here?
Carolyn likes it when it shows all three of us, but Tanya likes the close-ups too.
Kevin's comment on Super Thrive. Now we haven't hit this in a long time because it just hasn't come up, but products like Super Thrive, and then what was it, B1? B1?
Super Thrive originally was concentrated B1.
Yeah.
Which does virtually nothing for a plant except smell. But I think as people became smarter and realized this is no good, they added micronutrients to the formula. So now it works as far as adding the micronutrients.
Yeah.
Did he have a question on that?
No, he just, what did we think of it? And so kind of like back to kind of like what you said is that it's a good product in the sense that it has micronutrients. Kind of like we definitely like HB 101 much better, in terms of like an anti-shock.
We've seen results with that.
All of that kind of goes with HB 101, and it's supposed to kind of be similar to Super Thrive in that way. But then people, like you say, will say, "Oh, just go buy B1," and B1. They used it as a root stimulator. They used it as an anti-shock. It's not effective in that advertising. So you don't find it as much on the market. So to answer your question, it's not a terrible product.
Yeah.
But
B1 does nothing. But if it has micronutrients, the micronutrients will.
Yeah. There was another one I wanted to hit. Trying to think where to go. My redbud tree's blooming.
It's very quiet.
I know.
Very quiet.
There's a lot of questions. It's just tough for us to keep up on all this stuff sometimes.
I see a few people questioning or making comments about lavenders. Actually, lavenders and rosemaries. Rosemary. I had and I don't know if they were hard to get for a while, but I just found one last week at Home Depot and ended up buying I forget what they call it. They changed the name because the original name of this lavender was so bad. I don't think anybody would remember it. But do you guys sell Merlot?
Merlot? Like the wine?
No, Merlot.
No.
M-E.
See how bad the name was?
M-E-E.
Merlot.
Yeah, M-E-E-R-L-O.
Merlot,
No.
right?
It's the variegated lavender
Okay.
that never flowers.
Oh, why?
But I don't know.
Yeah.
But the leaves are, I mean, so fragrant. I think the most fragrant of any lavender.
Oh, okay. But,
So I had one
So
in
you
my-
buy it for the fragrance of the leaves,
Yeah.
and the variegation. Look
And the
pretty.
variegation, it's really,
for the
really
flower.
pretty. Yeah, if you look it up, I know Home Depot had changed the name. Whoever's growing it for them said, let's market it under this name.
Yeah.
But if you look it up on the internet, I think you'll see how attractive it is. But anyway, I had one at my old house on Pepper Tree in Fallbrook.
Mm-hmm.
And since I moved, I've been looking for it and haven't found it.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden, there's hundreds of them at Home Depot.
I do like the hybrid lavenders much better than some of the originals because it seems like they grow a little. They're a little easier to grow. One of the problems with lavenders is they'll die out.
Or they just get too big.
Yeah, and they just get too big, and you can't prune them. They don't. It's not like a Mexican sage where you just cut it back and then it regrows.
There's very few plants, and lavender's one of them, where you prune it and it's dead.
Yeah, exactly.
If you prune it wrong or the
So-
wrong time of year.
So I really do like the newer varieties, and when customers ask me for lavenders, and they want the Goodwin Creek, they want the French lavender, English lavender, I go, let's try this because, like John said, like they end up getting too big. You can't prune them. They end up dying out early, and so I do like what they've done with the new lavenders.
Diane mentioned she lost some of her really old lavenders this year.
Really old is 2
there's
years old.
I've noticed that some of the bigger ones that get woody are the Spanish lavenders, French lavenders, some of the warm weather lavenders.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the English lavenders that I saw in Germany were, I thought, spectacular. They were more graceful, but they don't do as well in warm climates.
Yeah, that is the thing too. Is people say, "Oh, I want to grow like a lavender field," and yeah,
Well, you must go through that a lot.
not really the spot for it.
Setting up landscaping, and people want this, they want that, and then you're like, it's a lot of maintenance,
Yeah.
or it's not going to do well here,
The-
or they talk you into it, and then they come back and say, hey, it died.
Yeah,
yeah,
the
what
biggest,
happened?
the biggest thing for us in San Diego is bougainvillea. Everybody wants bougainvillea until they have.
Till they haven't. We're going to take a break on that note. 2 more segments coming up. Got a long segment coming up and a shorter one to end the show, so do stay with us, obviously. Here on Garden America, Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. We are coming back. It is Garden America because we're going to continue to grow until the show is over. Yes, indeed, we are back. This segment and one more, John. This is the longer segment, so whatever you need to do it now. A lot of questions.
Time-wise, not lengthwise, right?
Time-wise. Yeah, we
Okay.
have 10 minutes and 27 seconds with this segment.
Lenore is not going to forget this question for you, Tiger.
Okay.
She wants to know where her discount is on fertilizer.
Oh my goodness.
She said you were going to check into that.
Yeah.
It's already, well, I found out that it was already discounted, basically. The price that you see is a discounted price.
It's such a good price, they'd
Yeah.
have to give it away if it went any lower.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
they did. It's a discounted, what you see is the Garden America discounted Fertilome price.
So do you want to give out your home phone number so Lenore can call you directly from now on?
But really, we do encourage you to support Fertilome. That's why we're on the air,
Yeah.
basically,
exactly.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I will say kind of like to what Brian's saying, the discount price. Not that we are avoiding. Okay, we we want you to support Fertilome because
Right.
they do support us, and so to discount it would be a challenge. But I will say,
She just wants like a coupon,
Yeah.
like maybe like a 50-cent dollar coupon. Could she at least have that?
Could we give, how about an Atta girl? Atta girl.
but
How
at the
about
same,
a percent off if she drives from Canyon Country down to your nursery?
I'll give her a bottle of something then for sure.
Okay.
But
How about that, Lenore?
But the nice thing about Fertilome products is that they have a very low price on their products already because
Yeah, exactly.
they bypass a lot of things that other companies don't do.
There's less people
to-
in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do the manufacturing and marketing themselves.
All of
Right,
that.
exactly.
That, I found this, like, just to give you an example, their product, the Slug and Snail Bait. Okay. There's a company, Monterey, that puts it under the same product. They put it under the name Sluggo. When you go to buy Sluggo, let's say it's $12 on the shelf. The same product from Fertilome is, $9. And it's because, Monterey has marketing and they have other people to pay for the product and everything else.
There's a lot of people in between before it gets on the shelf.
Yeah. And so Fertilome, to avoid all that, they do their own packaging, marketing, and manufacturing that they can already sell it for cheaper. And there's the other product out there from, we've talked about it a lot of times too, from, was it Bonide who did the Captain Jacks? Who was it? Bonide?
I don't know because Captain Jack's was after my retail experience.
So another kind of a similar product, Captain Jack's, Spinosad, all those kind of spinosad-based products came out. And again, Fertilome has the same product, and sometimes they're even better. They have the insecticidal soap one, and they're much cheaper than the ones that you find on the shelf.
So there's your discount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Built
So
in.
bottom line is if she'll make a trip with her truck down to see Tiger, he'll give her a one-time discount.
Yes.
He said a bottle of something.
Yeah.
I'll give you a bottle of something.
A bottle of my favorite product from there is their spinosad soap.
Yeah.
Chewing insects, sucking insects. Mm-hmm. It's a great product to have in your arsenal when you have a garden.
Absolutely.
So spinosad soap is probably like my favorite product from them.
All right, John, what do we got? What do we have, I should
Kevin says that Kevin in Coeur d'Alene Kevin says that horse manure doesn't stink. So how nutrient rich is it versus cow manure? Well, first of all,
you're talking about he's talking about methane.
I don't think he is.
Yeah.
No, I think he's talking about the manure itself.
Yeah, but cow manure's got a lot of methane.
True.
Now, don't give me the eyes.
True.
Don't give me the eyes. You know what? Whenever he's thrown off, I get the eyes.
What about chicken manure?
Well, there you go. There's no methane in chicken
But
manure.
it stinks.
Yeah, it stinks for a different reason. It's like people.
You know what stinks
People can
even
stink.
worse
Well,
is
the point
cat
I was
manure.
going to bring up,
Cat manure is the
Brian,
worst.
that I think he might be referring to is if the worse it smells, the better it is, which is not true, right?
No.
No.
Because cat manure is
Yeah,
terrible.
so odor has nothing to do with
No,
effectiveness.
I'm just okay. You know what? Let's get
Kevin.
over this because that's not what I was referring to. I was talking about methane in cow manure versus other manures.
I'm not talking about that now.
We're going to get our own show, you know.
Yeah, I'll just sit over here a second.
I'm not putting the bad mouth on what you said at all. I think you took that personally, and I didn't mean it. And if you did, I apologize.
We'll talk about it later.
All right.
And then I'll take it in my room.
Okay.
But let's talk about manures real quick because there's a point to all this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the point is that the smell has nothing to do with the effectiveness, and it is a much better fertilizer.
What is?
Because horse manure.
Okay.
Because it has alfalfa in it, which contains a rooting hormone.
Yeah.
And that's not as much in cow manure.
And if you think about the manures, whether it be chicken or horse or cow
Manure.
or worm castings or anything else,
We sell sheep manure in Michigan.
I'm sure you do.
Well, this
But-
was a long time
But
ago.
think about what they eat because that's
exactly
that's the product, right? That's
what goes in comes out.
exactly. And like John mentioned, horses eat more alfalfa and they have less stomachs. So the end product is
3 less, I think.
yeah. And so the end product is actually a better manure product.
As
It's gonna
opposed to what do your
as-
chickens eat, right?
well, no, but that's not terrible because they eat bugs.
Chicken manure
and-
is one of the best
yeah,
fertilizers out
they
there.
eat all kinds of bugs
Right.
and good stuff.
But
that-
again, you have
protein.
to make sure it's composted because chicken manure can burn.
super hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fresh
But
chicken manure.
where a horse or a cow, number one, a lot of places where they get the manure from is going to be just force-fed cows, so it's not always like the best product that they're eating.
Doesn't the manure always come from the same source?
Well, no, I'm talking about the cow eating.
Oh, okay.
Like
And you got to explain yourself. I
Yeah.
get it. I know.
and then they have multiple stomachs, and then at the end of the day, their product is not as valuable.
So
I would
then a
say.
cow, instead of like, we'll say I'm full, right? A cow would say we're full.
because they have multiple stomachs.
Yes. We're full.
Because
Makes sense,
you're
right?
referring to just your one stomach
Yes.
when you say you're full.
I'm full.
It really
My
does,
stomach
doesn't
is
make
full.
sense because
Or you can say
cows
my
can't
stomachs.
talk, Brian.
My
What?
stomachs are
It doesn't
full.
make sense because cows can't talk.
You know, let me tell you about cows. There was a bunch of cows in the distance one time we were driving, and they were standing up like us. And then a
Like
cow
on
looked over.
2 legs?
Yeah, and a cow looked over and said, "Car," and they all went back down to grazing on all fours.
And
And the point is,
Do you get it?
it affects their manure.
No.
I like the Chick-fil-A cow post or billboards
commercials?
the best.
Eat chicken.
Yeah,
Eat more chicken.
Eat more chicken. Okay, so are we done with the potty talk? Is there anything else we
Potty
need to-
talk.
Yeah, manure.
Welcome to Potty Talk.
You know what I
That's
was
our
watching?
podcast.
I kind of felt bad. You remember Cow Pots? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember that company?
Yeah.
They were just on Shark Tank.
Really?
Yeah.
A new or
Was it
an
a
old
rerun
Shark
or
Tank?
an old one?
I feel it was new. I feel like it was newish.
Really?
Yeah, I just saw it. And so not super great success, I think, for them.
Right.
But I mean, it's a, mom and pop shop, and it's a great product. And the biggest thing that I thought was really cool was that
Now these
to
are
ex-
just the regular pots that were made out of cow manure, right?
yes.
Because there was an Amish company that had pots made out of manure that were in shapes, like you might have a bunny.
And it's a bunny manure pot.
It's a bunny manure pot. Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah. I forget
But
what
these-
those were called.
But these were
Your
just
dad'll
pots
remember
made
that.
out of cow manure, right?
Yeah,
That you would
right.
use to plant your seedlings, and then you could just plant the pot. But the cool thing about it is the reason why they were on Shark Tank and trying to expand their line is they're like, there's only so many pots you can sell. But they went into more other forms of packaging. So like those cardboard
Right.
forms that
Right.
they use in like electronic packaging or wine bottles or whatever it is, they wanted to expand into that market to be able to kind of expand their company. Well, it's a good
Wine
idea.
bottles made out of.
No, not wine bottle. The packaging, like they'll put wine in a box,
Right.
and in order to not have them move around, they'll put one of those cardboard
Yeah.
forms
Yeah,
in
like
there.
you would with a case of wine and stuff.
And
that
that
you
would
Yeah.
put
be
in
made
there.
out of cow manure?
Well, yeah, and it's because they just make those out of like the paper pulp
Right.
now, so they can easily make that out of the cow manure.
And then you could throw
it in the
that in your
garden.
garden.
Yeah,
at
throw it in
home.
the garden. Boom. Yeah. Well, they were saying that
Did anybody invest?
I couldn't watch the end, but they were thinking about it, but it wasn't there. There was one. What's his name? Mr. Wonderful.
Oh, the guy-
He was
yeah,
in.
yeah.
He was in negotiations.
Right,
And
Kevin? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he
and I
likes-
think no, he did. He did
likes
invest.
wine.
He likes wine. He did invest, but it wasn't a great. It wasn't a great thing. Like not all of them wanted to invest.
Yeah, he
but-
didn't give him what he wanted.
Yeah.
Probably. Okay, we're going to take a break on that note. One more segment. It's a short segment, small
Yeah, I
segment.
wanted to ask about llama manure when we come back.
All right.
Great.
That and any other manure, we can get into that too. Very interesting topic. Back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. All right, this is it. The last segment. Do you
Do-
get any round of applause?
Do
for
your
anybody?
comments come in order? Sometimes I feel like I'm lost.
Right.
While reading comments.
I know, right?
Yeah.
You know, prior to the break, I mentioned llama manure. That was popular for a while.
Llama?
Yeah.
I win.
What about alpaca manure?
Well, along those lines, Brian.
Right.
Be kind of the same.
Because John, they're commenting here. Highly recommended Seacoast compost. New product in California from Oregon uses fish waste. I think that's where a lot of the ocean forest gets their benefits from is fish waste. What about that? What about fish manure?
Yeah, what about it?
Sounds fishy to me, Brian. The I'm trying to find the questions again. I
Yeah.
just
all over
lost
the place.
myself here for a second, but I'm back. Let's see. We're done with manures, right?
Yeah.
We mentioned the. Speaking of manures, now that I think
No,
of
we're
it,
not done with it, apparently.
No. I think I've mentioned this before, but when I was working in the garden center in Michigan, there was a product called dry canure, which was turkey manure, and
People were
smelled.
gobbling it up, weren't they?
Oh, it was.
Shelves.
I'll tell you, it smelled so bad, even in the bag. Nobody
Really?
wanted to stack that.
Oh goodness.
But it worked really well. Okay. I think it's Lenore asked the question, can you grow clematis from seed? The answer is yes.
Yeah. You can grow
But-
anything, most things from seed.
Yeah. But the thing is, since all clematis, or virtually all clematis that are sold are hybrids, what you get from seed will not be the same, may not be the same as what you plant.
Yeah. That's why if you look at the clematis seed packages, a lot of times they'll be like, clematis, whatever. And on the package, they'll show different flower colors.
Oh, do they have seed packages?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never seen that.
The reason
No?
they show
Yeah.
different ones is because you don't know what
Because you
you're going to get.
don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I learned something new today. I can leave, Brian.
Yeah. Or like they'll do that with Morning Glory sometimes too, where they'll have like the Morning Glory, but it'll have like different color
Well, those
flowers.
those are just mixed seeds, though.
But
That's
I mean-
a mixed package.
But I mean, even then, like sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. You know what I mean? No, the mix package,
Yeah,
but
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, because Morning Glories you
Is-
can buy by variety.
Right. But what I was getting at is sometimes they'll just put them into a grouping, and that's what they do with clematis. Is they won't put them all as one; they'll put them into a grouping, and you just don't know what you're going to get.
I get it. I followed you from the beginning.
John's still reading. There's a lot of chatter that went all over, and then even I think they commented on someone commented on horse manure. Needs to be broken down and composted. That is the thing. You know, a lot of people that live in rural areas will be like, oh, there's a farm and I'll go pick up manure,
Right.
whether it is cow or sheep or horse or whatever. But it needs to be composted because if you put any direct manure into the garden,
Salt is it something?
well, it's not fully composted yet, so it's what we call hot. So
Yes.
it burns plants.
Yeah.
And it needs to be composted before you incorporate it into your beds. So just be careful with that. And then
Veronica wants to know, Tiger, what is Fertilome fungicide 5? She said that it was showing up on the screen, but it has a sticker on her screen and she can't see what it says.
oh, it's their fungicide that they have. It's called Fungicide 5. And you would use it as for rust, for powdery mildew, for black spot, for I can't remember the exact 5, but it's rust, powdery mildew, black spot, and then there were 2 other specific fungal issues that it's really, really good for. I think it took the place of. Do you remember Serenade?
Yeah.
I think it took the place of Serenade because you can no longer get Serenade, but it was a fungicide, and it's a topical spray. So, when
Serenade was a bacteria, though, right?
Mhm.
So
and I think that
that's the same thing.
yeah,
Wow,
Yeah,
that
I'll
was
look
pretty
it up.
effective.
it was. I don't know what happened to the Serenade product, right? So, but it's a product
Company
we
did a
put on.
swan song, Brian.
Yeah, it's a product. It's in the top corner. It's our little corner bug is what we call it. Yeah.
Rick remembers back in the day, Dr. Earth used to be on the show once in a while.
Dr. Earth.
Yeah. And wants to know if he's still in business. I think, did he sell out?
Yeah.
Dr. Earth sold out, right?
I don't think Milo.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Milo
I don't know if
Seamus
he's.
was-
I don't know if
Milo
he's
Seamus, yeah.
sold out. Like meaning like if he's not involved anymore. But he did. He did sell out.
What
in
about-
the sense of like going
you're
into
a
box
sellout.
stores?
Yeah.
He is,
That's what it was.
Bacillus amyloquifescens strain, right there.
That's
That
easy
one.
for you to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Eh,
Yeah, look at that. huh?
Fungicide 5. Say
Yeah.
it, John.
let's see. Amylolique fascians.
There you go. Fungicide 5.
Yeah, 5 is much easier to say.
Yeah, that's why they came up with that name, right?
Yeah. I think it's fascinating when you can find bacteria that perform functions like that. You know, like there's bacteria BT kills caterpillars.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one of our sponsors, Bacillus israeliensis, kills mosquito
larvae.
Yeah.
We got to go. That's it.
What?
Running out of time.
Hey,
See how
quickly,
quick that was. Yeah, quickly.
Fungicide 5 can also be a soil drench for fungal root fungal issues.
There you go. We're going to leave you
wow.
on that note. That's a good note to be left on.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a great rest of your weekend. A good week. Be safe. We're back here next week, right?
Yep.
You would think.
What did I say? Ranunculus.
Ranunculus.
I was about to say rhododendrons.
Ranunculus.
Ranunculus.
All right. There you go. So, again, enjoy yourself. Have a good rest of your weekend, a good week, a safe week. We'll do it again back here next week with Garden America. Brian Main, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. Get growing, America. Right, John?